All right, lovelies, here we are. We are in the last lesson of this module, and it's going to be, again, pretty easy. So the most important piece of today's lesson, we're going to talk about offboarding and following up with your clients once the work is done. So at this point, you've done the bid, and you positioned yourself as an expert, and you told them what to need, and then you did a kickoff, and you walked them through what to expect and what they were going to get, and then you created your own systems, right, for managing this and slowly and constantly improving your processes. And then now the work is done. You've done the work. And what's important is that you package up that work in a manner that creates a successful experience for your client. So one common mistake that I see new freelancers make is that they just kind of like, okay, I designed it, or whatever, wrote it, designed it, whatever, I'm just going to shoot it over to the client. And they just send an email and like, here's the final project. And then it's like crickets. And I want you to put yourself in your client's shoes and remember that your client has their whole life and business going on around them. And they're not following up. They're not tracking on exactly what you're doing most of the time. Like, yeah, they probably have their own systems, but like they've got their own stuff coming in. Make it as easy as possible for them to take the work that you've provided and do what they need to do on their end with it. So if you are a designer, make sure that you have specs and that you package everything up in an easy to follow manner and, create a zip file of everything that they need and a list of what they should be doing with it. If you're a copywriter and you have written out 16 pages of content, make sure that it's broken out into 16 separate pages of content that your client can easily access and link to, or whatever it is that you do. Think about what your client really needs to be successful, because your business is going to grow exponentially if you can make your client money and if you can communicate to them the work that you've done and how to take it to the next level, right? So you may be done, but your work doesn't necessarily end. One example is if you're a web designer. Years ago I did WordPress websites, and initially I would just hand them a website off to a client and it would be done. But then they kept coming back to me with questions. They didn't know how to do this. They didn't know how to do that. And then I created more work for myself. And if you enjoy doing that, then that's great, because you can actually start building in retainers for ongoing support. I did that for a little while, and then I realized I hated doing that stuff. I hated doing the little stuff. I like doing the big projects, right? So I wanted to instead, what I did, it was build into the initial work the training and the onboarding. So when I delivered a WordPress site to a client, I would also give them a packet of training materials. Here's how you do X, Y, and Z. Here's how you create a post. Here's how you edit. And here are 16 resources and people that can help you if you get stuck, because I don't do that anymore. All right. And you'll get there as you grow. Early on, you're probably going to do a lot of that stuff, and it's part of the learning process. So don't feel bad about it if you end up making mistakes. You're learning, you're new at this, and it's just about constant and never-ending improvement, right? So package everything up for your client in a manner that sets them up for success. That's number one for today's lesson. Number two is, when you're doing that, it's a great time to ask for feedback from the client on how the process went. Give them a survey or ask them to reply back and let them know how you did, right? And then do your own internal review as well. And you want to build in time for this to every project. At the end of the project, even if it's just sitting down for 15 minutes with a pen and paper to think about what went well and what didn't, build in a little bit of time to do your own internal review and figure out where you could have done better, where you could have saved time, where you found yourself struggling, what you enjoyed and what you didn't enjoy. That's going to be really important to you in this new business as well. You want to start refining what you do into the pieces that you really enjoy. If you don't enjoy it, maybe you can outsource it. Maybe you can hire a junior person to do some of the work that you don't enjoy so much. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today is really just about scheduling time to follow up with your clients, particularly to get either future work or referrals. So I highly recommend that you put together something, some sort of customer relationship management tools. When I did this, as a designer, I simply used Excel. I had a spreadsheet that was just a list of people that I had worked with. I did not actually do this very well, to be honest. Now I use more CRM programs, and I'm going to put a list in the lesson of stuff that you can use if you want something bigger. It's really about you. It's about your clients and your experience. But get the stuff out of your head. And what I want you to get in the habit of doing is making sure, that, your project is offboarded really well, but then you follow up with their client in a few weeks or a few months, depending on your process. 6 weeks later is a great time to go back to a client and be like, hey, how'd it go? How's that new website treating you? How's the new branding? How's the copywriting working? Follow up and find out what actually went well for them. And if they're raving about that work you did, ask for referrals and ask for repeat business. Like, wow, I'm so glad that you have 10x your revenue in the last 6 weeks. Who else do you know that could use my help? Right? And get the name of somebody, another client. And you're going to start seeing your funnel fill. It's also a great way to get those testimonials that you can put on your website. And with that, you can ask for them in person, but typically it's better to get them in writing. Have your client write it back via an email, send them a form that they can fill out, ask them to testify on LinkedIn or your Facebook page, wherever it is that you want to capture that. Make it as easy as possible for them to give you good words that you can then use elsewhere, right? And that's it for this week. It's super simple stuff. And as I said, remember that no matter what, your goal is just constant and never-ending improvement. There's no wrong way to do any of this other than to make it so complicated that you never do it. That was something that I like to do for a really long time. I'd be like, it's too hard to set up a CRM, so I'm not going to do it. And then once I actually just started writing things down and getting them out of my head, I saw increases in my business, because I would at least, once a month go back and refer to that spreadsheet and be like, oh, I haven't followed up with that client in 6 months. So just start building the systems that are going to keep you moving forward. Chances are you have a pretty good idea of what you need to do. And so your goal is really to just start making it easier and easier for you to do it. Okay? Enjoy and go crush it and get profitable. Let me know if you have any questions. Put them in the forum.